I want to tell you something that most people in my life don't know. For 20 years, my family lived in the same small house, same cramped hallways, same thin walls you could hear everything through, same kitchen that fit exactly 3 people before someone had to leave. And I used to be embarrassed by it, but somewhere in those 20 years, I learned something about money, about identity, and about what a home actually is that I genuinely believe most people will spend their entire lives never figuring out. I'm going to tell you all of it. The financial reality, the psychological cost, and the thing that changed everything, not just for my family's bank account, but for how I see every money decision I make today. This is a video I've wanted to make for a long time. Let's get into it. When I was a kid, I didn't understand why we didn't move. My friends had bigger houses, some of them had their own rooms. A few of them had houses with 2 floors and a garage and a backyard that felt like a park. We had 1 bathroom, 3 bedrooms that weren't really bedrooms. One of them had been a storage room that someone put a bed in and called it a night. The living room doubled as the study. The kitchen table was where homework happened, where arguments happened, where everything happened. I remember being maybe 15, 16, and being ashamed to have friends over, genuinely ashamed. Not because the house was dirty or falling apart, it was clean. My parents kept it immaculate, but it was small. And small, I had learned somewhere, meant less. Less money, less status, less of everything the world was supposed to be giving you. What I didn't understand, what took me embarrassingly long to understand, was that the smallness of that house was one of the most deliberate financial decisions my parents ever made. See, here's the pressure I didn't see clearly until I was in my late 20s. Every single year, there was a reason to move. My dad got a raise. Why are we still here? My mom's income went up. Surely we can afford something bigger. The neighborhood started changing. Maybe we should go somewhere nicer. And every single year, my parents said no. Not because they couldn't, because they'd made a calculation that my teenage brain couldn't comprehend yet. And that calculation, the one they quietly made over and over for 20 years while I was too busy being embarrassed, is the thing I want to talk about today. Because I think a lot of you are feeling the exact same pressure I did growing up. Not from your parents, from yourselves, from the internet, from watching people your age share their apartment upgrades and their new builds and their first home tours. And somewhere in you, a voice is saying, if I'm still in a small place, if I haven't upgraded yet, if I'm not in a bigger house by now, what does that say about me? It says nothing. And I want to prove that to you with 20 years of real numbers. Let me show you what 20 years in the same small house actually looks like in real numbers, not hypothetically, based on my family's actual situation. When my parents bought that house, they took on a mortgage they could genuinely afford on 1 income, not 2. That was deliberate. If one of them lost their job, they could still make payments. That single decision insulated our family from 2 separate economic shocks over those 20 years that I watched destroy the finances of people around us. Here's the first number. The average family that upgrades their home every 7 to 10 years, which is roughly the national average, spends between $25,000 and $40,000 in transaction costs every single time. Estate agent fees, stamp duty or transfer taxes, moving costs, the new furniture that never quite fits the old house and has to be replaced. Do that twice over 20 years, you've spent up to $80,000 just on the act of moving, before a single mortgage payment. My parents spent 0 on moves. That money stayed in the house. The house got paid off. Here's the second number. Housing costs, mortgage, maintenance, insurance, council tax, or property tax typically consume 28 to 35% of a household's gross income. In a bigger house, that number almost always climbs toward 35%. In their small house, they kept it closer to 18% for most of those 20 years. That difference, 17% of gross income every year for 20 years, went somewhere else. Some of it went to my and my siblings' education. Some of it went to an investment account that looked embarrassingly small in year 3 and looked extraordinary in year 15. Some of it just became breathing room, the financial margin that meant a broken boiler or a medical bill didn't spiral into a crisis. Here's the third number, and this one is harder to quantify, but I think it's the most important one. Lifestyle inflation has a compounding cost that most people massively underestimate. When you upgrade your house, you don't just upgrade your mortgage, you upgrade everything. The furniture has to match the new space, the neighborhood is different, so the social expectations are different, the car outside starts to feel wrong, the holidays feel like they need to calibrate to a new standard. This is what economists call the hedonic treadmill, and what most of us just call keeping up. My parents stepped off that treadmill in year one and never got back on. They didn't upgrade the house, so they never felt the pressure to upgrade everything that surrounded it. Now, I want to be clear about what I'm not saying. I'm not saying everyone should live in a small house forever. I'm not saying ambition is wrong and wanting more space for a growing family is financially stupid. Both of those things can be true and healthy. What I am saying is that the decision to stay, made consciously, made strategically, made without shame, is one of the most powerful financial moves available to most people in their 20s and 30s. And almost nobody presents it as a move. It gets presented as a failure to launch, as being stuck, as not having made it yet. The reframe is this. Every year you stay in the smaller, cheaper place and redirect the difference into assets, index funds, paying down debt, building an emergency fund that actually gives you options, you are not falling behind. You are pulling ahead, quietly, in a way that will be invisible to everyone around you for years, and then, suddenly, unmistakably obvious. My parents' house was fully paid off by the time I was 23. They were in their early 50s with zero housing debt and an investment portfolio that had 20 years to grow. Nobody saw that coming because nobody had been watching the quiet decisions that built it. Let me give you 3 key insights from all of this, worth pausing and writing down if that's your thing. Number 1, the house is always the anchor. Every other financial decision in your life calibrates to your housing cost. It is the single largest determinant of your monthly spending, your savings rate, and your financial stress. Keeping it conservative, even temporarily, even when you could technically afford more, creates slack in every other area. The most financially effective thing most people in their 20s can do is resist the pressure to upgrade their housing before they've built the assets that would make that upgrade genuinely sustainable. Number 2. Shame is a financial instrument and it's being used against you. The embarrassment of a small house, an old car, an unfashionable postcode, these feelings are not neutral. They are the mechanism through which lifestyle inflation works. When you feel ashamed of what you have, you spend to relieve the shame. Advertisers know this. Social media is engineered around this. The awareness that your shame is being leveraged doesn't make it disappear, but it does let you make decisions in spite of it rather than because of it. Number 3. Invisible wealth compounds differently than visible wealth. The people who look wealthy, the bigger house, the newer car, the frequent holidays, and the people who are wealthy are often 2 completely different groups. Wealth that's invisible, built quietly over years of below-your-means living, compounds without the friction of lifestyle maintenance. It doesn't need to be upheld or performed. And because it isn't visible, it isn't socially pressured upward. It just grows until the day it becomes undeniable. And by then, it's already done most of its work. Now let's make this practical. If you're in your 20s or 30s right now, here's the real-world version of everything I just said. First, calculate what your current housing costs as a percentage of your gross income. Be honest, include utilities, insurance, maintenance, everything. If that number is above 30%, you have a housing cost problem that no investment strategy can fully compensate for. If it's between 20 and 30%, you have some room, but you're probably feeling the squeeze. The question to ask yourself is, what am I doing with the money that isn't going to housing? Is it building assets, or is it calibrating to the lifestyle your housing has set? If it's under 20%, whether because you're in a smaller place, a cheaper area, or you made a conservative mortgage decision, you are in a genuinely powerful position. The question is whether you know it. Whether you're treating that gap as a weapon for building wealth, or whether you're filling it with other forms of lifestyle inflation. My parents treated the gap as a weapon for 20 years. I grew up embarrassed by the house. I grew up proud of what it built. I want to ask you one thing. Drop a comment and tell me what percentage of your income goes to housing right now. You don't have to give exact numbers, just a range. Under 20, 20 to 30, above 30. I want to see where this audience actually is, and I'll reply to as many as I can. There's one part of this story I didn't tell you today, because it deserves its own video. When my parents finally did upgrade, after the mortgage was paid off, after the investment account had done its work, the way they approached that decision was completely different from how most people approach buying a home. They had a framework, a set of questions they asked before they looked at a single property. And those questions, I think, are the difference between a housing upgrade that builds your wealth and one that quietly dismantles it. That framework is the next video. Every question they asked. the ones I've started using myself. Subscribe so you're there when it drops. Because if you're thinking about upgrading your housing in the next 1 to 3 years, I genuinely think this will be worth your time before you do.